there's a stunning moment of honesty about the real motivation behind the drug war. So remember, this is a guy who's big in Nixon's administration, one of his top guys, and he said the following about the reason behind the drug war. Quote, "You want to know what this was really all about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it legal. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did."
Smokable cocaine, otherwise known as crack. It is an explosively destructive and often lethal substance which is crushing its users. It is an uncontrolled fire.
An alarmed President Reagan renewed President Nixon's war on drugs with a vengeance. Congress poured money back into local police forces to try to fight the rising tide of violent crime. And the White House organized an education campaign against drugs, a campaign geared to school children.
What will you do when someone offers you drugs? I can't hear you. Louder.
Everybody wants a piece of the pie.
A whole generation of kids, man, are being lost to this shit. The role figures that they have, guys running around in BMWs and Mercedes with gold chains and, bracelets and things like that. Kids want to be like that. They see these guys. They want to be the same way. And the only way to get that way is to sell crack.
What do you deal?
Cocaine?
Cocaine? How old are you?
14.
Why? Why'd you get started?
I need new clothes.
You needed new clothes?
Yeah.
And what else?
And I wanted to buy a little bit of gold.
You wanted to buy a little bit of gold.
I have money in my pocket.
How much money would you think you make in a day or in a week?
In a week?
Yeah, in a week.
About 800.
About $800 in a week.
Yeah.
Disappear.
What you got?
What you need?
What you got? You got crack?
You want crack?
Yeah.
It's not going to have to be around here.
All right, but you can get it?
I can get the good crack. Look at me.
Now look, we've been driving around. Are you worried about the cops?
No.
Should I be worried about the
Are
cops?
you the cops?
I am not the cops.
You swear to God you're not the
I
cops.
swear to God I'm not the cops.
Let's go get the good crack.
Now don't get in the car yet.
Okay.
No, but you're telling me no fooling around, you can get this
My
stuff?
right hand of God, man. I know what the deal is on cocaine and women. You know what I mean? If it's anything I know cocaine and women, all right?
What's this crack gonna cost? Good stuff.
They got $20 bills and they got $15 bills and they got $10 bills. The $20 bills, the jumbos.
On the streets of New York, it's called crack, and the deals go down quickly. You've just witnessed a buy. This form of cocaine comes concentrated. It is smoked rather than sniffed. It produces an intense high within 5 to 10 seconds that lasts only 5 to 10 minutes and leaves the user craving for more.
And this is the most addicting thing that probably ever existed in the world. It will make you a slave.
Put it in this top piece right here, and you burn it. And most people's pleasure is seeing the clouds, and after that's gone, that's your high. There's no more. Attention users and abusers.
Down and out losers.
Stop chasing that cloud that never fails to elude ya.
Spending that money like it's
Minute Maid, you get
stupid
stupid charge on a whole week's pay. Feels like you're on cloud 9. You got to get another one.
you see them steady burning.
Goes to 5 days hot.
It's like 24/7.
You're at the crack spot.
It takes you out of the world, like when you feel, when you feel confused and you feel alone and you feel a lot of pressure and everything. It's like you go and you take a hit.
You think you're chilling.
When you're ill and moving 80 miles an hour.
You can't slow down.
Got no willpower.
Like once you start getting high, you really don't think about tomorrow or the next day. The next day you just think about, how to get another hit.
There are an estimated 1.2 million guns here, more guns than there are people.
This 22 automatic I keep
I keep that one under my pillow with me.
Along with his .22, Art Sims owns a 9mm automatic pistol, an assault rifle, and a sawed-off shotgun. He lives in one of Detroit's better neighborhoods.
5 streets down, you got crack dealers, and you got people breaking in. They come down here, they see nice houses, they see nice things, and they want to break in. So, I got to protect myself from them.
You're prepared to use those?
Yeah, at all times.
Detroit is bleeding. If you're young, black, and male, you're more likely to die by violence than any other cause. Last year, there were 400 children aged 17 or younger who were shot in the city. 40 were shot dead.
Like a whole generation is being wiped out. It's like they just don't care about life. It's nothing to take a life.
Gloria G's son lost his life last April. Police sources think a drug hit team shot him by mistake. Quentin G was 19.
When I visit the cemetery, what can I do? Just say to myself, why? Why is he there? He doesn't even know why he's there.
News with Rich Fisher, Dana Eubanks, and Detroit's first news team.
Good evening, everybody. Detroit homicide investigators are trying to put together the pieces of a very gruesome puzzle tonight, and so far they have very few answers. 5 people were found murdered at 2 locations on the city's southwest side.
We spent one night with the sheriff's narcotics squad raiding crack houses. At one, a couple arrived so desperate for drugs, they ignored the police cars in front and came in anyway.
You always that stupid, or you just work at it hard?
At another house, the suspects included a mother of 3, pregnant with her 4th.
We've had families, literally, arrested families with father, mother, sons, cousins, nephews, whatever. We're all involved in the entire operation. And I guess they pass on their traits, pass on their craft to the next generation.
You might be troubled by talk like that, especially coming from a cop. But Detroit's cops are overwhelmed by what has become a billion-dollar-a-year business here. In fact, some black community leaders told us that the drug industry is now the biggest employer of young black men in Detroit.
Do you understand your rights?
Crack rules in a city where once cars were king.
Detroit put the world on wheels. In one generation, these and other names created America's #1 industry.
Then the bottom fell out. In the last decade, nearly a third of all auto workers lost their jobs, and blacks were hit hardest. Detroit's unemployment rate is staggering. Infant mortality is twice the national average, and almost 3 times as many Detroiters fall below the poverty line.
Authorities believe was behind a decade of bloody Oakland drug wars and killings was buried today, and police hope his passing is going to bring to an end an era of brutality in Oakland's turbulent history. But even in the end, this funeral today was flashy and controversial, and the city really couldn't do anything about it. Channel 7's Ed Leslie has details for us.
Right along in here. I need just a little bit more room, please.
Just when the East Bay thought one of its most notorious hoods was gone forever, he came back to star in a funeral production fit for a king. Alas, it was his own. 32-year-old convicted drug racketeer Felix Mitchell was stabbed to death last week in his cell at Leavenworth. Mitchell was convicted in San Francisco federal court earlier this year after allegations that he was the kingpin in an East Oakland heroin dealership that featured fancy cars, flashy parties, and murders. Murders including victims who had nothing to do with Mitchell's mob, innocent people who were killed merely by accident. His neighborhood, however, was divided today on whether Felix Mitchell was a hero or a villain.
The family has a right to a private funeral. I don't think they have a right to force this kind of thing on the community in Oakland, and I'm very upset about it. Felix dealt in drugs over here in the village for years. He used young kids to deal with drugs. I don't think any of us here want our kids to be brought up that way. And I think this is a good example of what happens when you deal with drugs.
If you put some jobs here, maybe we won't have this on the streets of Oakland. That's what it takes. You understand?
I know what he done. He was a good man. And we need to tell the city officials that if they get the jobs out there, then maybe it wouldn't be so much drugs in Oakland.
And that is the genocide plan of the African American people. And we must...
It's
killing our youth at 13 and 14 and 15. They simply aren't being buried until they're 30 and 35 and 40.
This city, the drug of choice is pure cocaine.
Ray was bringing probably about 500 to 1,000 keys into D.C.
His family business sold 1 ton of cocaine.
Crack use spread like wildfire in the early 1980s. And in Los Angeles, a drug dealer known as Freeway Ricky Ross was in the middle of it. Prosecutors called Ross the Walmart of crack. He made millions in the early 80s dealing to Los Angeles street gangs. Police say he was among the first to take expensive cocaine powder and cook it into low-cost, highly addictive crack, then distribute it through the gangs. Webb says Freeway Ricky helped trigger an epidemic of human misery.
It's destroyed our community. All the black men are in prison, most of us.
Rick Ross is now serving a life sentence for cocaine distribution.
The women are still strung on their drugs, kids without fathers, without mothers.
And honestly, how much responsibility do you have for that?
A lot. A lot of it was my fault. I played the game.
Police in Los Angeles say he virtually cornered the crack market, thanks to a steady supply of cheap cocaine. A pipeline so good that Ross was able to introduce crack to other cities, using his gang contacts, and to make himself, he says, a very rich man.
On your best day, how much money did you see?
Couple million, 2, 3 maybe.
A day.
On a good day.
How many days like that were there?
A few. Quite a few.
Rick Ross's drug supplier did have connections to the Contras. Dateline has been able to confirm that from former Contra leader Eden Pastora. And Pastora admits he received some aid from that drug supplier. But Pastora says he was not aware of any CIA drug connection. So we asked Gary Webb, where is the evidence the CIA knew of any drug dealing?
You have to define the CIA. If you're saying that people who were working with the CIA know they were doing it, yeah. Did the director of the Central Intelligence Agency know this? I don't know. This is nonsense.
Now retired, Dewey Claridge was the CIA's man in charge of Central America in the early 80s. Yes. He insists the agency had nothing to do with any drug trafficking or with any cover-up.
Oh, don't give me the conspiracy bullshit. Come on, you're a more intelligent man than that. Well, come on. I mean, come on. There has never been a conspiracy in this country.
Never? Gary Webb's version of events may be wrong, but in the mid-1980s, there was a high-level White House conspiracy called Iran-Contra. Whatever you believe, Gary Webb's stories have revived interest in an issue that's been simmering since Ronald Reagan was at the White House. Were U.S. government officials aware of drug smuggling in and around the Contra movement? And did they simply choose to ignore it? One U.S. senator says, absolutely.
There's no question in my mind there is a complicity in the flow of drugs into this country, period.
A Senate investigation led by John Kerry of Massachusetts found that individuals who provided support for the Contras were involved in drug trafficking, and that one or another agency of the U.S. government had information regarding the involvement, either while it was occurring or immediately thereafter. Incredibly, according to Senator Kerry, smugglers even used the U.S. government's own airlift operation at El Salvador's Ilopango Airport to get cocaine back across the American border. This drug enforcement agent patrolled that same airport in the mid-80s.
It was just nonstop traffic coming and going, and nobody ever inspected their planes or their cargo or whatever.
Cele Castillo told Dateline he observed rampant drug smuggling at that airport.
Well, what we had was that we had Contra pilots flying out of Ilopango, smuggling drugs into the U.S., cocaine specifically.
He claims the smuggling was so open it had to be condoned by the U.S. government. Castillo says planes would arrive filled with supplies for the Contras, then leave carrying cocaine for America, bound for military airfields in Florida and Texas, offloaded out of sight of the law, then shipped to California and other points in the U.S. And there's more. Castillo says when he reported all of this to his bosses at the DEA, he was told to ignore it.
So you were told point blank, stay away from it.
Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me in the late 70s to become involved in protecting agency drug operations in this country. I have been trying to get this out for 18 years, and I have the evidence. My question for you is very specific, sir. If, in the course of the IG's investigations and Fred Hitz's work, you come across evidence of severely criminal activity, and it's classified, will you use that classification to hide the criminal activity, or will you tell the American people the truth?
The rumor that the CIA was involved in making sure that cocaine made it to the streets of South Central LA back in the early 80s, and then helped to develop and turn it into crack, which was then spread across America, and is the reason why most of our inner cities are in the plight that they are in. And a lot of this has been out there for years, but it wasn't until recently that the story broke again. And my next guest is a reporter from San Jose Mercury News, and he wrote a story called The Dark Alliance. Please welcome Mr. Gary Webb to the show.
The media rejoiced when this came out because it meant they had won. They had forced a newspaper to back away from a story that was true, simply because of this barrage of criticism, of mindless criticism, essentially, that really took its toll on the editors of the newspaper. And they were being seen as sort of outcasts from the club. And I think they made a political decision that it was better in the long run to take a dive on this story and get back in the good graces of the rest of the media. It was essentially a war between my editors and myself because I wouldn't apologize for the story or back away from the story, and fought them on it publicly. And so they transferred me to a bureau that was 140 miles from where I lived, and I called in sick a lot.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The committee, House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, is here today to review the report of the CIA Inspector General regarding allegations made in a 1996 newspaper series that the CIA was involved in the trafficking of crack cocaine to California during the 1980s.
Gary Webb, a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter who wrote a series of stories linking the CIA to crack cocaine trafficking in Los Angeles, is dead. He died at the age of 49, found Friday morning at his home in Sacramento County, dead of an apparent suicide. Moving company workers called authorities after discovering a note posted on his front door that read, quote, "Please do not enter, call 911 and ask for an ambulance." Webb died of a gunshot wound to the head, according to the Sacramento County Coroner's Office. He's survived by 2 sons and a daughter.
Wrestler, today I come with no mask, I come with no hidden voice, I come to you straight face to face because this is reality, man. I'm ashamed to say, and a hired enforcer. In the late 70s and early 1980s, when I was in my 30s, I stood 6'3" and weighed between 260 and 300 pounds. I was very visually intimidating. I'm not proud to say that. In the 1980s, I transported and trafficked in large quantities of cocaine throughout the United States of America. I bought cocaine from the largest drug trafficker in the United States, Barry Seal, out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I would then sell that cocaine to contacts around the United States.